no time to lose. If anybody was confused, doesn't mean no time to lose to get things done. It's no time to lose to take some action around climate change. For those that know me, know that that's what I'm singularly focused on these days. And so again, just a brief background of me. I've worked in workplace for over 30 years. I have a small design firm in San Francisco. And I didn't start out as a interior designer. I actually was finishing up my graduate degree in landscape architecture and had an opportunity to start a business with my partner from the ground up, an interior design practice. And being the entrepreneur that I am, I took that charge and just ran with it, not knowing really what I'd gotten myself into. And we had the luck of falling into workplace in the Silicon Valley. And so we worked with some incredible tech companies that understood that the space equals creativity, collaboration, that your space really can make is where things can really happen. And we felt like we were revolutionizing the workplace back then, bringing down cubicle walls, creating all kinds of different types of workspaces to work in, getting the CEOs off the corner offices. And we were just passionate and loved what we were doing for so long. And I think at some point I got a little bit of a midlife crisis and started to really question, okay, these are incredible spaces, but they're really only serving a small corporate elite, the 1% of corporate clients. And how can we bring our design to more people? How can we do more, bring it to communities? How can design be this force for good beyond our client briefs and these beautiful projects? And so first opportunity that I had to explore that idea was an invitation by Salone in Milan to do a booth to represent the West. There was an architect designer from the North, South, and East, and we were representing the West to design a booth about the future of work. Right up our alley, super excited. And I took that charge literally, the future of the West. And I started to think of kind of the first time I started to think about issues around climate change. But at this point in time, I was just thinking about the drought that we've been having, not really that climate change was causing the drought. But I started with that kind of basic premise and built this idea around water as something that connects people, this idea of conserving, saving. So it was this dystopian idea that water would become a precious resource, and we needed to reuse, save, store, capture, all of that. And what I loved about this project is that water is symbolic of so many things: life, renewal, refresh. And also this idea of the water cooler, where in the olden days, old office days, you'd come around the water cooler to gossip, but to chat and connect and build community. So my idea was that you would build community around this challenge of water and the scarcity of water. And there was other layers to this project. We looked at different ways of working lying down, as you can see in this bottom slide, or walking. You actually carry your desk or your chair to a spot and sit down and work. So the idea of work from anywhere, we tried to expand on that idea as well. This was done in 2016. And I love this project. And so I looked for other opportunities. They were few and far between. We had a few opportunities to get really creative without a client, without a budget, without a crazy schedule. But at some point, I was like, okay, we need our own project. And I was, again, really thinking about how do we bring our design to communities? How can design be a force for good? And I thought, rather than bring them to our stuffy offices in San Francisco, let's go to them. And in order to do that, I decided we needed to create a mobile design lab. And so we bought a food truck, converted it. We went around California. We had grand plans to go all the way to Chicago and back, but California, it was a very shaky drive. So LA was about as far as I really wanted to go. But we went to Fremont, San Jose, Bakersfield, and LA, like I said, and each time we partnered with a nonprofit or a community partner. Like in Bakersfield, for example, we partnered with an architect. These are the slides down here at the bottom of our Bakersfield trip, an architect who was really into revitalizing the downtown. And we spent the week working with the community, imagining what this blighted neighborhood that we were parked in might look like, and what they might want to, how they might want to see it develop. And the upper slides are a trip we went down to LA and partnered with a nonprofit trying to bring awareness to the LA River. Every time we went to a community, we would first sit down with and do a team building brainstorming project around what that community needed. And in Fremont, this slide on the right is they just wanted an addition to the mini golf course, and so we designed a mini golf hole for them. So in this case, we pulled out our hammers. We found out how good we were at construction versus designing the construction project. It was a bit of an eye opener, but just absolutely love this part. I'm going to go back to. I just wanted to show this slide of this book. We actually turned this whole project into a book where we chronicled our journey, and that book was published at the end of summer of 2019. And it was at that point I was like, done. That was a crazy project, never doing that again, right? And I was sitting at home recuperating, and then the wildfire started again, and I'm breathing the air and sitting there trying to get my air purifier going. And I've got a stack of magazines next to me, and this one had bubbled up to the top. And I looked at it because the picture was very striking. And I noticed it was from last year. And I'm like, oh yeah, gosh, these fires are just happening every year. I read this article, how our planet is, the habitable spaces of our planet are getting smaller and will continue to get smaller as climate change gets worse. And it seemed it was the right moment of me coming down from that other project and thinking about what's next, that climate change all of a sudden clicked in for me. And it's been climate change has been a long journey for me, because as a kid, I was a daughter of a scientist. We lived a very frugal life. We recycled, we drove a small, super energy efficient car. Like, we did everything we could do back then. And it was part of who I was. And I naturally joined the ecology club in middle school. Here I am. But the funniest thing happened. I realized how uncool the ecology club was. And I quickly basically steered clear. I decided cool was way more important. Being cool was way more important. And it literally took me almost 50 years to get back to climate change. I'm embarrassed to say that I know a lot of firms, a lot of people have been really active and really pushing it for the last 10 or 20 years, but I took that turn. But I'm back, and I'm hopefully back in a big way. I've just got a couple of slides. I know you've all seen this, but I did want to just address the urgency and kind of level set this, that climate change is happening. The IPCC report came out recently that it's 100% human caused, and we can see, I mean, the proof is here just from the industrial age. The concentrations of carbon dioxide have just skyrocketed, right? And it's really, really critical that the Paris Agreement has been trying to keep climate at 1.5 degrees, even just a 0.1 degrees over any benchmark, 1.5 or whatever it might be, is really going to cause more and more serious, like exponentially more issues and problems for our planet. Extinction of species, availability of water, we're seeing sea level rise, all of these things, right? And then here's another chart. If we go beyond 2 degrees, we're going to be seeing really, really devastating issues around food, water, our ecosystems, and all of our extreme weather events are just getting worse every year. And then this risk of irreversible changes, tipping points is something that is really freaking me out. There's things that we don't know, and this kind of snowball effect. And this is one of my big fears. But anyways, enough doom and gloom. Well, okay, my first slide. I just want to show this because I just want to show, here we are down here, historical emissions, and we really, if we want to get to 1.5, this is where this is why I'm saying no time to lose. We've got to really turn things around, like immediately, right now. And this is where we really should be going. This is where if we follow the pledges that all of the countries have made, we're going to be going this way. It's still kind of looking like it's heading towards 3 degrees. And then with our current policies, we're in this orange arrow, and just showing if business as usual, we would be up there at 5%. So anything we do at this point matters, and business as usual just has to end today. And then you've all probably seen this pie chart. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we have an impact, our building operations, what it takes to the energy that it takes to run a building, plus all of the embodied carbon in the materials of these buildings, designs, interior spaces that we create, all have an impact. And this is where we can make a difference. And so, okay, so 2019, Bill McKibben, cover of New Yorker. I was like, okay, what do I do now? A few weeks later, I get a call from Avi. This is Avi from Metropolis magazine, saying that he's planning to do a think tank series again. What would I like to talk about? And I thought he was gonna just go, you're crazy, but I'm like, this is the only thing I'm thinking about now is what we can do as designers. And I wanted to explore what, if a designer embraced the idea of being an activist, what a designer could do. And so we had this incredible panel talk at my office in the fall of 2019. And then a few months later, I had an opportunity to write an article for Fast Company, and I knew exactly what I wanted to write. And I'd done a little bit of research, and I was dismayed to see that interior design associations really hadn't made much of a pledge or a statement around climate change, whereas the AIA, I noticed around that time in 2019, right before this, they had put out a big call to action, urgent and sustained action towards climate change is needed. And I wanted to see our industry at least acknowledge the problem. And so I challenged the industry with this article. And then the pandemic hit, right? And about a year later, Metropolis magazine did some investigative reporting and was able to utilize a study that a firm up in Seattle did to show that interior design's carbon footprint could be as much as the architecture of the building envelope, because of the turnover in leases. And I'm sure it sounds like this, everybody's heard of this, which makes me very happy. So I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but if you look up this was my Bible, sat next to my desk for all of 2021. And so I'm really excited that we're understanding the impact that the interior design industry can have. So the next thing I thought to do, and I thought, well, this is an easy thing to do, and it sets the bar for O+A, is we came up with a pledge. And it was circling around in my head for almost that whole year of 2020, or let's see, 2020, yeah. And then in January, the day of the Capitol riot, it just came out of me as I was watching the TV. And that I started with the first, down here in blue, this first pledge that we really don't know a whole lot, but we have no time to lose. We have to, regardless of that fact, we need to just act. And so the first pledge was to embrace our constraints as opportunities, and knowing that we don't know everything and we can't know everything before we start acting. And then a few other, I'm not going to go into these, but I tried to create measurable items, and I also tried to address EDI and also this idea of, as one person, I can only do so much. As part of my organization, my company of O+A, I can do more. If I join others in my industry, design firms, manufacturers like Material Bank, and supporters like Material Bank, I can do so much more. And it's really not about, it can no longer be about competition. We just need to come together to find solutions. And so this last one is that we pledge to join other groups lobbying for change. All right. And then I have to do a shameless plug for my podcast. If I could see, I would ask you all, raise your hand if you started a podcast during the pandemic. A lot of people did. There's so many podcasts out there, but I'm having so much fun with this. We're almost at 40 episodes, and we've actually just got rebranded in January. We talk to trailblazers. We talk to people that are trying to make a difference, often through design, or at least through looking at a problem differently and designing a solution that's never existed before. And it's not just about climate change, but I mean, climate change and its interrelated problems like plastic pollution, ocean-bound plastic, material health, and things like that. So if you have an inkling, tune in. I'd love to have you as a listener. So the other thing I did during the pandemic, we, like every other firm, we lost a lot of business. We had staff that we wanted to keep busy. And I thought, why not do our research, do our homework, figure out where we want to start on this journey. And so this is our primer, our handbook for how we're going to take action at our firm. And there's 7 chapters. We started with an introduction and how we can engage. We have a very important chapter on materials and products and how to specify. My favorite, I think the most important chapter is how to design differently, looking at how to minimize your waste. And then we definitely have a chapter on social equity, and because that's just so important, such an important piece to the puzzle. And then a chapter on nature and biophilia. And then just looking at how you might rethink the interior design process. And so I'm gonna touch on a couple of chapters and that's it. So choosing your materials. So I thought this was going to be the easiest chapter, but picking a material that is red list free is so hard, or just comparing materials, because you have your EPD label, you have your declare label. It seems like you don't have, it's apples to oranges always. And there are databases like Mindful Materials and Ecomedes, and they're getting better, but it's not black and white like I thought it would be. And I think what we learned, what's important is we really need to choose our materials based on our values as a firm. And no matter which way a firm enters this conversation, it will make an impact. If it's about lowering toxicity, that makes an impact. If you're focused on social responsibility and how responsible a manufacturer is to their community and their workers, that will make an impact. In fact, if you pick something that is non-toxic, most likely that manufacturer is responsible enough, cares enough to minimize that toxic material, that they're also taking care of their employees. So it's kind of like this, these are all interconnected. So what I'm saying, so rather than what we kind of try to do is pick the best material across, we created these crazy spreadsheets in Excel and checked off all these boxes and just realized, maybe we just need to pick one thing, but it's not easy. We're learning that it's really challenging to retool, but every day we try to chip away at it. And then this was a really fun exercise that we did that we ended up, I wasn't sure we were going to include it in the handbook, but just a funny flow chart. I think the point of this flow chart, even though it starts here with, does the material contain any red list chemicals, you really can start anywhere based on where your interest lies. And it's never black and white. Yes, if it does, we're saying that's it, you're done, it's toxic, but there is this other line that says, well, there is some toxicity, but let's see what we can do with that. And then there's all these nodes, and you could actually start, say, like over here, if you're really interested in building your community and supporting your community or women-owned businesses, you could start with, is it locally sourced? But what I like is that as some of these bubbles go down, at the ends of these is where we can really also make an impact as designers. We have so much power, specifying power. And here, the end of this line says, lobby manufacturers to find safe and friendly alternatives if there are none right now. Be vocal over here. Tell the manufacturers to step up, or you're going to specify something else. And so I think that that's where we have our leverage, and that's where we have our power. Okay, this is from that chapter, the minimal waste chapter that I mentioned earlier, that I feel is where we really start to think about changing our design process. And we got creative with these 3 R's: recovery, reuse, and redesign. And so recovery would be the first step. When you come into a project, you want to have these super creative, open-minded vision about what you can recover, take from that site, work with the design firm that came before you, work with the client to really recover anything that can be reused on a site, and to get creative with that. And reduction is then this idea of during the design process, thinking about the material, what size it comes in, how it's made, and using it to its full capacity, and minimizing any kind of cuts, any kind of unnecessary waste that might happen based on some pattern or some way of laying things out. And it seems pretty straightforward. Then you can look at it, you can look at carpet, you can look at cabinetry, anything that could potentially be taken down, reused, is also thinking about sizes of what might, consistent sizes of something that might be able to be taken and reutilized elsewhere, which brings us to redesign. And this is similar to, I got really excited learning about design for disassembly, and a lot of architects are really embracing this idea, and even creating entire spaces that are built on some kind of system or ceiling grid or strut system, where all the walls can be taken down, all the doors could be reutilized, windows, every piece of the office can be taken down and replaced somewhere else. And that's this idea. And this to me is the ultimate. And then again, figuring out ways to connect with the next design firm that's coming in, so that if you do all this work to create all these parts and pieces that can be reutilized, that they actually do, and don't end up in landfill. I mean, that's ultimately what we're trying to achieve. And so we've got all of these great new ways of working, and we're working hard to try to retool and to just rethink how we design. And I wanted there's one page of social equity and then another page of back to nature. And I think that's all I'm going to show. And this is downloadable. We wanted to make sure that was one of our pledges, that we wanted to be open about everything that we're doing. I know every design firm is on a different track, a different path, and we're maybe taking baby steps compared to another firm who's already creating net zero buildings and things like that. But maybe this would help another firm that's also in our same journey point. So social equity is important. We look at urban universal design, equitable design, and ultimately, I feel like if I had to bring it down to one thing, it's this idea of bringing everyone to the table. You need to bring all points of view, not just your clients, but the community as well. Anybody, especially anybody that hasn't had a voice before or doesn't typically have a voice. And so I don't know about you all, but I've had a few hybrid meetings now. In the last couple of months, our office just came back to the office 2 days a week. And when I can't join, I join the meetings virtually, and then everybody else is at the kitchen table. And it's an interesting experience. I feel a little bit of an out-of-body experience when I'm virtual. And we realize that inclusivity needs to, that's also an issue in these hybrid meetings, that we want to make sure everybody has an equal representation at the table, whether you're virtual or you're in person. And so we created this typology to hopefully mitigate some of the issues that you might have being virtual versus being in person. And then with nature, biophilia has been big for the last several years. We all know the power of having plants in your office for all kinds of health benefits. And so we expanded a little bit on that. But I feel like the reason it was so important and why I really wanted to have this in this chapter is that climate change is about being connected, knowing that you're a part of your ecosystem, of your environment, not that you want it, that you're better than, or that you are using it that you're exploiting it, or see, what's the word? Oh, anyways, it's not about, it's really about having a connection and understanding your piece in the ecosystem, that you're part of the ecosystem. And you can't have that appreciation if you don't already have an appreciation for nature or a connection to nature. And that's why it is so important for designers to try to make that connection for in their spaces, for the workers that are going to be using the space, or so on and so forth. And there's several ways. We've got nature engaged. You can be very direct and specific, and relate to nature directly, or there's more indirect, more ways that are more symbolic, but they all are effective. All right, so again, this Eco Playbook is downloadable, and I encourage you to take a look. And last couple of slides, I wanted to share, okay, this is what I'm doing. What I just showed you is what I'm doing personally and with my practice. And I know from what I've been understanding with just trying to enact change within a society, that the more you can connect with a bigger organization, bigger group, the more impact you can have. And so I'm part of IDA Northern California, and I started a climate action committee last year. And what I did was I found some bills that would make sense to support around building decarbonization. And I had our committee vote, our board vote and support those bills. And then we created a position statement on climate change. I was very proud to do that. And that it lives on our website, on our IDA Northern California website. And I'm looking forward to actually supporting another bill around building materials with low carbon. And so that's happening this year, and we're planning some events. And I just think that the more we can do, the bigger we can amplify our voice, the better. And I'm so grateful to Material Bank for also giving me this platform today. And the last thing, I've also been trying to help plug and promote this Interior Design Pledge for Positive Impact that Metropolis, IDA, ASID, and IDC all came together to put out there into the world. And if you haven't signed it, please take a minute to do so. Thank you.